P9. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is second. Jose Miguel Moncada is P9. The qualification session is at Bahrain International Circuit in Sakhir, Bahrain. The wind speed is 2 km/h from the north-northeast. Carlos Villavicencio from Colombia is second. Sebastián Aristizabal from Colombia is third. Carlos Villavicencio is P2. Oscar Bejos from Colombia is ninth on mediums. Is P11 on mediums. Carlos Villavicencio is P13. Christian Gomez from Colombia is first up 3.95 on mediums. Best lap is a 2:12.076. Christian Gomez is up 5.65 in T6. Christian Gomez is up 7.11 in T10. Christian Gomez is up 7.95 in T12. Christian Gomez is up 8.85 in T14. Christian Gomez improved his P1 with a 202.999. Alejandro Arango from Colombia is third on mediums. Alejandro Arango is up 0.28 in T2. 10 minutes remaining in the session. Alejandro Arango is up 0.43 in T5. Christian Gomez in T9 is P3 up 0.21. Alejandro Arango in T8 is 4th up 0.55 on mediums. Alejandro Arango is up 0.88 in T11. Christian Gomez is third up 0.12. Best lap is a 202.999. 0.285 off pole. Christian Gomez is provisional pole with a 202.749. Alejandro Arango in T15 is P5. Alejandro Arango improved his P4 with a 203.831. 1.117 off pole. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is provisional pole with a 202.483. Juan Carlos Guerin is P5. Juan Carlos Guerin is up 0.83 in T12. Juan Carlos Guerin is up 1.16 in T14. Juan Carlos Guerin improved his fourth with a 202.792. 0.309 off pole. Juan Carlos Guerin is up 0.03 in T1. Yanli is P13. Yanli is up 16.18 in T15. From Colombia in T15 is 12 on mediums. Esteban Gomez from Colombia is P11 on mediums. Esteban Gomez is P11 with a 2:05.555. 3.072 off pole. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is provisional pole with a 2:02.250. Jose Miguel Moncada is P9. Jose Miguel Moncada is up 0.47 in T14. Jose Miguel Moncada improved his P6 with a 2:03.729. 1.479 off pole. Jose Miguel Moncada is up 0.01 in T1. Oscar Bejos is 13th. Oscar Bejos is up 1.12 in T12. Five minutes remaining in the session. Oscar Bejos is up 1.74 in T14. Oscar Bejos improved his 11th with a 2:05.332. 3.082 off pole. Christian Gomez in T10 is P3 up 0.18. Christian Gomez is up 0.07 in T12. Ivan Trujillo from Colombia in T7 is P15 up 0.43 on softs. Christian Gomez is P3. Christian Gomez improved his second with a 2:02.579. 0.329 off pole. Diego Ortiz in T11 is 13th up 0.48. Is up 0.38 in T14. Sebastian Aristizabal is 14th. Carlos Villavicencio in T14 is third up 0.10. Sebastian Valencia from Colombia in T12 is P16 up 10.54 on mediums. Sebastian Valencia is up 10.90 in T14. Christian Gomez is P2 up 0.25. Christian Gomez improved is second with a 2:02.341. 0.081 pole. Jean-Pierre Perrin is provisional pole with a 2:01.714. Christian Gomez is up 0.01 in T1. Ivan Trujillo is 15th. Ivan Trujillo is up 0.50 in T11. Ivan Trujillo is up 0.62 in T14. P15 with a 2:01.686. 3.972 off pole. Ivan Trujillo is up 0.01 in T1. Carlos Villavicencio is third. Carlos Villavicencio is up 0.63 in T15. Jose Miguel Moncada from Colombia in T12 is 7th up 0.67 on mediums. The qualifying session is now in overtime. Jose Miguel Moncada is up 0.77 in T14. Jose Miguel Moncada improved his P6 with a 2:02.928. 1.214 off pole. Alejandro Arango is P10 up 0.45 on mediums. Alejandro Arango improved his fourth with a 2:02.736. 1.022 off pole. Alejandro Arango is up 0.06 in T2. Sebastian Aristizabal is 6th. Sebastian Aristizabal is up 0.77 in T15. Aristizabal improved is second with a 2:02.000. 0.286 off pole. Juan Carlos Guarin from Colombia is P6 on mediums. Best lap is a 2:02.747. 1.033 off pole. Gerson Robia from Colombia is P18 on mediums. The race session is at Bahrain International Circuit in Sakhir, Bahrain. The wind speed is 2 km/h from the north-northeast. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is P1. Sal from Colombia is P2 on mediums. Carlos Villavicencio from Colombia is P3 on mediums. Christian Gomez from Colombia is 4th on mediums. Rango from Colombia is P5 on. Jose Miguel Moncada is 9th. Jose Miguel Moncada lost P13 to Sebastian Valencia. Sebastian Aristizabal in T10 is P2, 0.6 behind Christian Gomez. Lap 2 is 6th, 0.2 ahead of Carlos Villavicencio. Carlos Villavicencio in T11 is 7th on mediums battling Yanli. Ivan Trujillo exiting pits on mediums. Juan Carlos Guerin in T13 is 9th, 0.4 behind Santiago Idarraga. Juan Carlos Guerin is now 8th. Sebastian Valencia from Colombia is P12 on mediums, 0.1 ahead of Jose Miguel Moncada. Diego Ortiz exiting pits on softs. Sebastian Valencia lost P12 to Jose Miguel Moncada. Ricardo Pineda is P8. Ricardo Pineda lost P10 to Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Yanli in T8 on lap 3 is 5th, 0.5 behind Carlos Huertas. Jean-Pierre Ferrand from Colombia is 9th on mediums battling Esteban Gomez. Esteban Gomez is 9th, 0.2 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Yanli in T11 is 12th on softs, 0.1 behind Ricardo Pineda. Yanli passed Ricardo Pineda for P11. Carlos Huertas in T14 is P4, 0.2 behind J.Enriquez. Christian Gomez in T1 is first. Best lap is a 2:03.288. Carlos Huertas is P4, 1.9 ahead of Juan Carlos Guerin. Juan Carlos Guerin was 1.1 faster last lap. Esteban Gomez is P9, 1.6 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Yanli in T4 is P11, 0.7 ahead of Ricardo Pineda. Yanli lost P11 to Ricardo Pineda. Carlos Huertas in T10 is P4. Best lap is a 2:05.321. 2.033 off the fastest lap. Juan Carlos Guerrero is 6th, 0.4 behind Carlos Villavicencio. Alejandro Arango exiting pits on mediums. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in T12 is P8, 0.4 behind Santiago Idarraga. Yanli is 12, 0.5 behind Ricardo Pineda. Jose Miguel Moncada in T14 on lap 4 is P10, 0.8 behind Esteban Gomez. Carlos Villavicencio entering the pits is P6. Alejandro Arango entering the pits is 17th. Juan Carlos Guerrero is 5th. Carlos Villavicencio exiting pits on mediums. Santiago Idarraga is 7th. Best lap is a 2:05.463. 2.419 off the fastest lap. Jose Miguel Moncada on lap 5 is 9th battling Esteban Gomez. Esteban Gomez in T8 is 9th, 0.9 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Diego Ortiz exiting pits on softs. Esteban Gomez passed Jose Miguel Moncada for 8th. Jose Miguel Moncada in T10 is 9th, 0.5 behind Esteban Gomez. Esteban Gomez in T11 on lap 5 is P9, 0.5 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Esteban Gomez passed Jose Miguel Moncada for 8th. Ricardo Pineda is 12, 0.4 behind Yanli. Santiago Idarraga in T14 is P7 on softs. Jose Miguel Moncada on lap 5 is P9, 0.1 behind Esteban Gomez. Jose Miguel Moncada was 1.8 faster last lap. Christian Gomez is P1. Ricardo Pineda in T1 on lap 6 is P12. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in T8 is P6, 1.3 ahead of Santiago Idarraga. Santiago Idarraga from Spain in T10 is P7, 0.4 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Jean-Pierre Ferrand was 1.5 faster last lap. Yanli from China in T10 is P11, 4.6 behind Carlos Villavicencio. Carlos Huertas is 5th on mediums, 0.1 behind Juan Carlos Guerrero. is 12, 0.5 behind Yanli. Sebastian Valencia in T11 is P13. Jose Miguel Moncada in T1 is P8 battling Esteban Gomez. J.Enriquez from Colombia is third. Ivan Trujillo entering the pits is P15. Carlos Huertas in T8 is P5, 2.2 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Ivan Trujillo exiting pits on mediums. Carlos Villavicencio in T8 is P10. Sebastian Aristizabal from Colombia is P2. Esteban Gomez is P9, 2.8 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Jose Miguel Moncada was 1.2 faster last lap. Juan Carlos Guerin in T1 is 4th, 3 point J.Enriquez. Christian Gomez in T8 is 1st. Ricardo Pineda in T1 is P11. Best lap is a 2:06.484. 3.672 off the fastest lap. Santiago Idarraga from Spain in T8 is 8th, 0.3 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Jose Miguel Moncada was 1.4 faster last lap. Yanli in T5 is 12th. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is P6, 1.3 behind Carlos Huertas. Sebastian Valencia in T10 is 13th on mediums. Miguel Moncada in T1 is 7th. Best lap is a 2:03.290. 0.478 off the fastest lap. Santiago Idarraga entering the pits is 10th. Alejandro Arango entering the pits is P17. Santiago Idarraga is P10. Yanli is 12th, 0.5 ahead of Sebastian Valencia. Yanli lost P12 to Sebastian Valencia. Juan Carlos Guerin in T9 is 4th on mediums, 0.4 behind J.Enriquez. Alejandro Arango exiting pits on mediums. Yanli exiting pits on softs. Juan Carlos Guerin passed J.Enriquez for P3. Carlos Villavicencio is 9th. Santiago Ibarra exiting pits on hards. J.Enriquez is 4th, 0.4 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Carlos Villavicencio is P9, 0.4 behind Esteban Gomez. Sebastián Aristizabal from Colombia in T2 is P2. Carlos Huertas in T1 is 6th, 1.2 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Carlos Guerin in T4 is P3, 0.4 ahead of J.Enriquez. Esteban Gomez in T4 is P9, 0.7 behind Carlos Villavicencio. Carlos Villavicencio is P8, 0.1 ahead of Esteban Gomez. Esteban Gomez in T9 is 9th, 0.3 behind Carlos Villavicencio. Santiago Ibarra is 13th on hards, 0.5 behind Oscar Bejos. Carlos Villavicencio in T12 is P8 on mediums, 0.1 behind Esteban Gomez. Ricardo Pineda in T11 is P10 on mediums, 0.1 ahead of Oscar Bejos. Jose Miguel Moncada exiting pits on mediums. Oscar Bejos in T10 on lap 10 is P12, 1.2 behind Sebastian Valencia. Sebastian Valencia from Colombia in T11 is 11th, 0.9 ahead of Oscar Bejos. Esteban Gomez is first, 4.6 ahead of Sebastián Aristizabal. Jean-Pierre Ferrand exiting pits on hards. Jose Miguel Moncada exiting pits on hards. Jose Miguel Moncada is P10. Diego Ortiz is 14th on softs. Oscar Bejos in T1 on lap 11 is P12, 0.3 behind Sebastian Valencia. Santiago Idarraga in T1 is 13th. Sebastian Valencia in T7 is P12, 0.3 behind Oscar Bejos. J.Enriquez in T1 is P4 on softs, 2.5 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Diego Ortiz exiting pits on softs. Carlos Villavicencio in T1 is P6. Sebastian Aristizabal on lap 12 is P2, 2.7 behind Christian Gomez. Esteban Gomez is P7, 0.4 behind Carlos Villavicencio. Carlos Villavicencio in T9 is 7th, 0.1 behind Esteban Gomez. Carlos Villavicencio was 3.3 faster last lap. Carlos Villavicencio passed Esteban Gomez for 6th. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is P9 on hards, 0.6 ahead of Jose Miguel Moncada. Juan Carlos Guerin is 3rd, 0.2 ahead of Carlos Huertas. J.Enriquez is P5, 2.5 ahead of Carlos Villavicencio. Esteban Gomez in T14 is 7th. J.Enriquez entering the pits is 6th. Oscar Bejos is 12th, 1.5 behind Sebastian Valencia. Carlos Huertas on lap 13 is P4. Ricardo Pineda in T1 is P7. J.Enriquez exiting pits on mediums. Sebastian Valencia is P11. Diego Ortiz exiting pits on softs. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is 8th. J.Enriquez in T7 is 10th on mediums. Best lap is a 2:04.731. 1.950 off the fastest lap. Juan Carlos Guerin on lap 15 is 3rd, 0.2 ahead of Carlos Huertas. Juan Carlos Guerin was 2.2 faster last lap. Santiago Idarraga in T4 is 12th. Carlos Villavicencio in T1 is P5. Sebastián Aristizabal in T10 is second. J.Enriquez is 10th, 0.3 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Jean-Pierre Ferrand is 8th, 0.4 behind Ricardo Pineda. Ricardo Pineda is 8th on mediums, 0.1 behind Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Christian Gomez entering the pits is first. Christian Gomez is first, 0.4 ahead of Sebastián Aristizabal. Christian Gomez entering the pits is first. Diego Ortiz is 14th. Sebastián Aristizabal entering the pits is P2. J.Enriquez in T10 is P10. Christian Gomez exiting pits on softs. Oscar Bejos is 13th. Sebastián Aristizabal exiting pits on softs. Esteban Gomez is P6. Sebastián Aristizabal from Colombia is P5 on softs. Carlos Huertas from Colombia in T10 is second, 4.5 ahead of Christian Gomez. Jose Miguel Moncada from Colombia in T4 is P9 on hards, 0.2 behind Ricardo Pineda. Sebastian Valencia exiting pits on mediums. Sebastian Valencia is P12. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in T9 is P7, 0.4 ahead of Jose Miguel Moncada. Jean-Pierre Ferrand was 1.2 faster last lap. Oscar Bejos exiting pits on mediums. Oscar Bejos is P13. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in T11 is P7, 4.4 ahead of Ricardo Pineda. Jean-Pierre Ferrand was 3.7 faster last lap. Carlos Villavicencio exiting pits on mediums. Carlos Villavicencio is P6. Carlos Huertas entering the pits is 4th. Sebastian Valencia exiting pits on softs. Carlos Villavicencio entering the pits is 4th. Esteban Gomez exiting pits on mediums. Esteban Gomez is P6. Santiago Idarraga on lap 15 is P11. Ricardo Pineda exiting pits on mediums. Carlos Huertas exiting pits on softs. Ricardo Pineda is P9. Carlos Villavicencio exiting pits on softs. Santiago Idarraga in T12 is 11th. Enriquez exiting pits on softs. Jose Miguel Moncada in T4 is 6th. Ricardo Pineda entering the pits is 10th. Carlos Huertas is P5 on softs battling Jose Miguel Moncada. Oscar Bejos exiting pits on softs. Jose Miguel Moncada in T9 on lap 16 is 7th, 0.2 behind Carlos Huertas. Jose Miguel Moncada is now 6th. Juan Carlos Guerin is 1st. Best lap is a 2:03.832. 1.051 off the fastest lap. Carlos Villavicencio in T11 is 7th on softs, 0.8 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Jose Miguel Moncada in T13 is 6th, 0.5 behind Carlos Huertas. Jose Miguel Moncada was 6.8 faster last lap. Juan Carlos Guerin exiting pits on softs. Carlos Villavicencio in T14 is P7 battling J.Enriquez. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in T2 on lap 17 is 4th. Carlos Huertas in T3 on lap 17 is 6th, 0.5 ahead of Carlos Villavicencio. Carlos Huertas is now P7. Santiago Idarraga in T14 is P11 on hards. J. Enriquez in T6 is 8th, 3.8 behind Carlos Huertas. Jose Miguel Moncada in T10 is P6 on hards, 1.2 behind Carlos Villavicencio. Carlos Villavicencio from Colombia in T11 is 5th, 1.6 ahead of Jose Miguel Moncada. Sebastián Aristizabal in T1 is 2nd. Carlos Huertas is P7, 4.0 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Jose Miguel Moncada was 40.6 faster last lap. Jose Miguel Moncada is P6, 0.2 ahead of Carlos Huertas. Sebastian Valencia is 12th on softs. Alejandro Arango entering the pits is 15th. Jean-Pierre Ferrand in T7 is P4. Sebastián Aristizabal from Colombia in T12 is 2nd. Alejandro Arango exiting pits on hards. Esteban Gomez is P9 on softs. 18 is 10th on softs. Juan Carlos Guerin in T15 is 3rd on softs, 0.1 ahead of Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Carlos Huertas is 7th, 0.5 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Juan Carlos Guerin is P3, 4.9 ahead of Jean-Pierre Ferrand. Esteban Gomez is P9. Santiago Idarraga in T14 is 10th, 0.2 behind Esteban Gomez. Santiago Idarraga lost P10 to Ricardo Pineda. Jean-Pierre Ferrand from Colombia in T10 is 4th. Jose Miguel Moncada on lap 19 is P6, 1.2 ahead of Carlos Huertas. Santiago Idarraga in T4 is 11th. In T5 on lap 17 is 14th, 0.4 behind Oscar Bejos. Juan Carlos Guerin in T1 is 3rd. Christian Gomez in T10 on lap 20 is 1st on softs. J.Enriquez in T1 is 8th. Sebastian Valencia is P12. Carlos Huertas is 7th on softs, 0.4 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Diego Ortiz entering the pits is 14th. Esteban Gomez is 9th on softs, 2.0 ahead of Ricardo Pineda. Carlos Huertas from Colombia in T13 is 7th, 0.3 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Diego Ortiz exiting pits on mediums. Sebastián Aristizabal is P2. Carlos Villavicencio in T1 is 5th. Carlos Huertas in T3 is 7th, 0.2 behind Jose Miguel Moncada. Ricardo Pineda is P10, 0.2 ahead of Santiago Idarraga. Jose Miguel Moncada is P7, 0.7 behind Carlos Huertas. Jose Miguel Moncada passed Carlos Huertas for 6th. J.Enriquez is 8th, 0.5 behind Carlos Huertas.